What's up? I'm Ashley, and we're going to be breaking down Severance, Season 2, Episode 1. I do plan on recapping the entire season, along with a few theory videos in between, so if you're into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, let's get into it. The scene starts with Mark exiting the elevator, and he just starts taking off running, and he seems a bit confused while he's running. So as he's running and running, he runs past this new purple room. And I'm like, what's that? But he keeps running until he finds the wellness center. And for some reason, it's cleaned out. So who did it? Nothing is there except a table, two chairs, a plant, and the clock on the wall. While he's standing in the room, still confused, a figure shows up behind him. And I'm like, who is that? At first, I thought it was Mr. Wilczek, but then when you slow it down, that's not that black man's hand. But now at this point, Mark is more calm, and he walks inside of MDR. And this is where we meet the new cast of characters.
I suppose you're Mark S.
Who are you people?
Same, because who are you people?
I'm Mark W. Would you be open to using a different first name to avoid confusion?
No, I was here first. Then here comes Mr. Milchek walking in with blue balloons with Mark's face on them, talking about it's been a minute. If I'm Mark, I'm popping him right in his face. He even has a blue turtleneck on to match them blue balloons. He coordinated, probably had his whole outfit laid out on the bed last night. They start walking down the hallway, and Mark wants to know where everybody at. Were they fired? But Mr. Milchek just ignores him and tells him to keep all his questions in until they get to the management office. He tells him he can leave the balloons in the foyer because he doesn't want him being distracted by the balloons because they have a lot to talk about. Not him saying that grown man gonna be distracted by them balloons and won't be able to hold a conversation because of them. The shade. Milchek then says what you all did 5 months ago was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company. So supposedly only 5 months has went by, but you can't trust nobody up in there. They get to the foyer, and this is when Mark meets Miss Wong, who looks about 12. How'd she get a job? Mark gives his balloons to her to watch, while he and Mr. Milchek goes inside of his new office to talk. But Mark wants to know what's going on.
Okay, what's happening?
Miss Cobell is no longer with this company.
Mr. Milchek tells him Miss Cobell doesn't work for the company anymore. I'm the manager up in here now. Mark wants to know where is his team at, because he don't know them people up in there. Milchek lets him know they didn't get fired. He tells him Helly and Irving both successfully made contact with the persons on the outside, just as you did, and that Dylan's Audi learned what happened after the fact. He goes on to tell him the four of them became famous. He hands him the newspaper as proof, but why is most of it blacked out? And why didn't Mark ask this? Why he didn't say, why it's blacked out for? What you hiding? It's about 6 sentences on this whole page. What's really going on? He then apologizes and says, I locked you in a room like an animal, Mark, as an unsevered man. I'll carry that knowledge for the rest of my life. First of all, it's not okay to lock an animal inside of a room either. He also tells him they know that Miss Cobell was at his sister's house when he woke up. Mark said, yeah. Why was that? Milchek tells him, we believed she developed an erotic fixation on you and had plans to pursue both you and your Audi in what might be termed a throuple. He calling Miss Cobell a little freak. She a little freaky. He said thankfully she failed at it. What you mean thankfully? You trying to get in on that throuple? Mark's not trying to hear none of that. He said, you still haven't told me where my team is. Milchek claims that they tried to get them back for weeks. He said, we tried for weeks. He claims none of them agreed to come back, which could be true, because who want to go back there? He said they told them about the reforms, but it wasn't enough. He tells him his Audi was the only one who insisted on coming back. Mark wants to hear from his team's own mouth that they didn't want to come back. He want to hear it from them. Milchek says that's not possible. Enjoy your balloons. But if it was never possible, how did they end up coming back? Makes me wonder, was it even them or are they clones? When Mark leaves the office, he lets go of his balloons because what is he going to do with them anyway? He gets to MDR where Mark W tells him they showed up an hour before he did, allegedly. He tells him his MDR was a lot more spacious than this one, but he does love the green carpet in here. Then proceeds to call Mr. Milchek Mr. Milkshake, while Dario calls Marco, asking him where can he get some ink for some pencils. And while Mark walks over to the supply closet for Dario, Gwen is bugging him about what the sky looks like outside. But did you notice Mark's face when he opened the closet? He made this face as if he didn't recognize the closet, which makes me wonder, is this the same MDR room Mark was in before? But Gwen is still bugging and she wants to know if Mark noticed what state they were in because three of them put down Wyoming on the survey. I think this is an important detail for some reason. I don't think they just threw that line in there. And if you remember back in season 1, Helly said Delaware. Then Miss Wong walks in and takes them all to the kitchenette, where they sit around the table and introduce themselves. We learn this is Miss Wong's first day on the job as deputy manager, and before this, she was a crossing guard, which is very odd. Then we get to Mark W. He says he's from the MDR department of branch 5X, whatever that means. We find out that he used to work with Gwendolyn and he thought that he would be permanently retired by now since his branch shut down. Why did his branch get shut down? And why they still got that old man working? Then we get to Mark S, and before he even speaks, he gets this flashback of his and Gemma's wedding photo. Then that's when he says he's lucky enough to have made 4 new friends. That's when Miss Wong quickly corrects him. She said, I'm not your friend, I'm your supervisor. Then the two of them have this awkward stare down until Mark finally gives in and says, 3 new friends. But we just overlook Dario and Gwen and we get back to Mark leaving work for the day. And I don't know if it was just me, but he seems confused by these light switches, as if that could be something new in there too. He then gets on the elevator, but we don't get to see him in his Audi form. It goes right back to his innie. So it's the next day, and Gwendolyn still has questions. We find out that in her perpetuity wing, her Egan's moved. Hers was animatronic and did a choreographed dance. Mark W. thinks that's weird, that Mark's statue Egan's just stood there and did nothing. While in Dario's perpetuity wing, his Egan's were brooms. Each of them had a face made of a plate. He said his wing was very poor. Why are some perpetuity wings more advanced than others? And was it Lumen's plan for them to discuss this? And while the three of them are talking about if they had CPR dummies or not, if they had elevators, Dario didn't have an elevator, he had a rope. While they discuss all that, Mark is writing a note, and before he leaves for the day, he puts the note inside of Mark W.'s jacket without him even noticing. Which is funny because before Mark S. does this, Mark W. tells him his last team was dirtbags that never made quota, and that he could tell that he really liked his last team, and that he's sorry that they're gone. So that could be one reason why they shut down his branch. But the next day comes where they've all discovered, including Mr. Milchek, that Mark S. tried to frame Mark W. with this note that read,
I don't know if this will reach you, but I'm writing to alert you of the heinous conditions in the severed office to which you have transferred me. The branch is run by a shambolic rube who goes by Milkshake,
Oh my God.
a man whose stupidity is rivaled only by that of the 9 core principles. If you must continue to send me here, please consider strapping a bomb to me so that I may explode both Milkshake and the very spirit of Kier Egan. Wrathfully, your innie, Mark W.
At first, Mark denies writing the note, but then when Milchek says, You didn't even try to disguise your own handwriting, that's when Mark says, I don't even know this team. I already told you. I want my old team back. That's when Milchek yanks the key card from his chest and gives it to Mark W. It makes Mark W. the new department chief. Mark starts smiling. Mr. Milchek says, What's funny? And that's when Mark says, You don't know what I did to the kitchenette yet, do you? Mr. Milchek starts running down the hallway to see what Mark did, but that was only a distraction so that Mark can run to his office. Mark goes through his drawers, and that's when he finally finds the speaker to be able to talk to the board. But Miss Wong want to be a little snitch, and she tells Milchek over the walkie that Mark is in his office. But Mark does have enough time to tell the board he wants his old team back. And as he's begging and pleading, Milchek comes in the room and snatches the cord from the wall. He then walks Mark to the elevator and tells him he's done for the day. We quickly get to the next day where Mark comes out the elevator and he sees this new painting of Kier holding a sword with an army behind him and what looks to be 4 victims. And just as he's about to walk away, Dylan G comes out the elevator. And I said, that's suspicious. He tells him the plan worked and that they all were replaced at one point and that Cobell is gone and Milchek is in charge now. So now Dylan is rightfully upset that the new man in charge is the one who destroyed his best belt. And just as he was about to point out the new Kier painting on the wall, they get interrupted by Irving yelling "Bert" from the elevator. Irving comes out the elevator tripping and looking confused, so he walks away. And as the two of them go after him, Mark is hesitant because he's waiting for Helly. And just as he was about to really walk away, she comes out the elevator. He greets her with a hug and tells her that he's been worried about her. He tells her it's been about 5 months or more. So then they go off to chase after Irving too. And at this point, he's locked himself inside of a room. He's distraught. So while he's hiding, Dylan wants to know if they're in trouble. Mark tells him he doesn't think so and that Mr. Milchek said that they were famous. But Dylan wants to know, are they all equally famous or is one of them the star? The three of them want to talk about what happens when they were out there, but they're too scared to because they think people are listening in. And suspiciously, that's when Helly says, "Hey, what happened to the security camera?" And at this point, now Irv has decided to come out the room, and that's when Miss Wong comes in to tell them that Mr. Milchek is waiting for them in the break room. While they're walking there, Dylan tells Mark, "You shouldn't feel bad for ending their lives because they deserve it." And that line sticks out to me because why do they deserve for their lives to end? Referring to their replacements. But once they get to the break room, which used to be for punishment, but for some reason is not anymore, Milchek tells them all where to sit, and Irv needs to sit in the back because he's a tall glass of water. He then tells them what they're about to watch will be shown to everyone who steps foot in the building. Gaslighting at its finest. But what sticks out to me is the poster in the back that says Grin and Bear It, which is very on brand for almost every workplace. He begins to show them the video, which is a talking Lumon administrative building, branch 501, whatever that means. It starts talking about the many changes the company has been through since 1870 and how it loves all of its employees, severed and unsevered. It goes on about how Lumon operates in 206 countries, but fun fact, there's really 193 countries. He then says, but what made the building truly happy is when 4 severed employees conspired against the company. And Lumon has decided to call it the Macrodat Uprising. They each have a cartoon character, and we see Irving saying, "Let's burn this place down," a reference back to season 1. We see Mark's cartoon saying, "Why are we still working down here in the dark?" Then we see Mark and Helly kiss. It goes on to say, because of the Macrodat Uprising, they now have new snacks like fruit leather, cut beans, Christmas mint, and salsa. Yummy. They also threw in new hallway passes, pineapple bobbing, and a new mirror room. When the video ends, he tells them he doesn't want to be their jailer. He doesn't want to keep them locked inside, so they have until the end of the day to decide if they want to come back. And before he and Miss Wong leaves the room, he tells them there's nothing recording them and there's no cameras. He's a liar, or maybe he's telling the truth because the spy is sitting right there with them. And I think the spy is Helly. That could be Helena. And here's why I think she's the spy. When Mark tells them his outie was at a party with his sister for Rick and Hale, and that Rick and Hale is his brother-in-law. He tells them he was married, but his wife died a few years ago, which is why he decided to get severed. But when he saw the wedding picture, it was Miss Casey in the photo with him. He's like, wellness is gone. So when it's Helly's turn, she just straight up lied. She told them she woke up in an apartment building alone, watching a nature show on TV, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. But Dylan wants to know what kind of t-shirt, so she tells him it was a Save the Gorillas shirt. She then said she went outside and found a gardener. She told him everything, but he thought she was crazy, but then said his brother is a cop, so he'll tell him everything. And this is when Irv catches her in her lie. He says, "A night gardener?" And that's when I'm like, that's Helena. There is a chance she didn't want them to know that her family started this whole thing, but then again, there are some clues that says that this could be Helena, and I'll get into them during my theory video. But now it's Irv's turn, and of course, he doesn't want to talk, he just leaves the room. So the three of them go after him. Dylan ends up going with him, while Helly and Mark stay back and go their separate way. While they're walking down the hallway, Mark tells Helly that he plans on getting his wife out of here. Then that's when Helly starts talking about how the innies and outies are two different people and that they don't owe them anything. But Miss Casey is one of us. So if you want to find out what happened to her, then I'll help you. Meanwhile, Dylan is trying to stop Irv from leaving. And that's when Irv confesses to Dylan he went to see Bert and that he's sad now because Bert got a man. But Irv finally does let him know that before he went to see Bert, he woke up inside of his apartment and was standing in front of some kind of an easel, and that his outie was working on a painting of a black hallway, but not like the break room's hallway. This one was different. It was darker, in that it was an elevator at the end with an arrow pointing down. He tells him that his outie drew about a dozen of them, then tries to leave again, but Dylan had to tell him, "Look, I know your outie Bert has a hot husband or whatever, but that's not the point. Any Bert is the one you fell for, and I know because I encouraged it. If you leave, I'll be sad and less productive. I don't know what I do here, but I know I'm good at doing it because of you." Irv makes a joke and says, "I'm your favorite perk." But then here comes Miss Wong interrupting, talking about Mr. Milchek wants to talk to Dylan. Meanwhile, Milchek is mad that his computer screen still says Miss Cobell on it. He's telling someone on the phone that this should have been changed by now. He said MR period space MILCHICK. When Miss Wong walks in the room, he tells her, "If anyone calls about my computer screen, you put that call right through immediately." Then Dylan walks in and says, "Are you going to apologize about the belt?" Then here goes Mr. Milchek playing more games and tells Dylan his wife's name is Gretchen and tells him to follow him to this back room. He shows Dylan the blueprints to a new renovation called the Audi Family Visitation Suite. He tells him not to tell his other colleagues. He tells him he'll be able to come here to see his family, but he doesn't want the other colleagues to know because they don't have a family, they're single. And all that's going to do is cause a division. We then cut to Miss Wong on the computer, and I don't know what she's doing. All I see is a bunch of O's or zeros in different columns. Then she opens the drawer and pulls out this water ring game and starts playing that. I don't know why they're showing us this, but I feel like it's for a reason. We cut back to seeing Milchek still mad over that computer screen, and now we're in MDR. And here's another reason why I think Helly is really Helena. She doesn't know where the computer switch is. Shouldn't she know where the switch is? Then while Mark is playing around with numbers on the computer, we see that he's at a 68 completed. But then all of a sudden, Miss Casey pops up on the screen. And I'm wondering, is this Miss Casey or is this Gemma? Because she's looking a little different. She's looking suspicious. Her hair is different. Miss Casey never wore her hair like that. Do y'all think this is Miss Casey or Miss Gemma? Let me know down in the comments so we can talk about it. And if you haven't already and want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.